All right, we've made it to Friday. And as I kind of previewed for you yesterday, today you've got only a couple things to do. Let's jump over to Schoology and take a look at that. So, other than having yourself take attendance, this screen and watching the screencast, in this screencast, I'm going to be going over with you a new rhetorical analysis essay that is linked down here. So you can read it, follow along, or take a look at it later. That we're going to be covering next week as part of our review. And we're going to be doing some step-by-step things with it next week. So if you look down here, while I am going to start reading it out loud to you, you should annotate by taking notes as I read it, and then also looking back at it later. I'm going to give you suggestions. I'm going to tell you when to pause the recording so that you can add some things to your notes. So do that as I'm going through with it, and you'll get that done right away. And then the other thing is that do tomorrow night, did I say welcome to Friday? It's Thursday. Oh my God, it's Thursday. Tomorrow night, Friday night at 11:59, your rough draft of your 500-word personal statement is due. So make sure that you have kind of worked on that a little bit today as well. Okay, so let's get started. We are taking a look at this rhetorical analysis passage. Let me talk to you a little bit about why I chose this passage for you. This is actually one that is not from a retired AP exam, but it's something that I thought might work really well and help preparing you for this AP exam, because I really think that this AP exam, the 45-minute one that you're going to be taking in May, the rhetorical analysis is going to be with a little bit more formal diction, maybe a little bit pre-20th century information. And this one, if you take a look here, was published in 1906. So even though it's at the cusp of the beginning of the 21st century, it does a lot of stuff with language that you're going to see in older writing. So I wanted you to practice that a little bit, because the writing that we looked at last time, Susan Booth Lucci, was post 21st or 20th century. And I wanted you to kind of see something that was a little bit older. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and offer you suggestions of things to pay attention to and then read it. So first things first, make sure you pay close attention to everything that's written up here. Remember that you can start determining what you're going to write for your SOAP statement up here, because it has information about speaker, occasion, audience, purpose, subject, and then also includes some information, maybe a little bit of information about tone. Now, let's talk first about tone. You'll see here that this is a eulogy. A eulogy is a speech that is performed at a funeral, and it's usually done to honor the person whose funeral it is. So think about what sort of tone someone might want to have in that, and think about some of the tone words that we talked about earlier this week in the link about tone words. So what kind of tone is being used by the speaker here? Okay, I want you to pause the video and read over this information up here at the top, taking note of speaker, occasion, audience, purpose, subject. Please pause now. Okay, so you've done that on your notes. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to read through this. You'll notice that unlike most rhetorical analysis passages, I have not done line numbers, but I have instead done paragraph numbers. So when you're referring to the passage, you'll say in paragraph 1, in paragraph 2, in paragraph 6, things like that. Okay, let's take a look at this. Here we go. Your flags at half-mast tell of a nation's loss, but there are no symbols and no words which can tell the love and sorrow which fill our hearts. And yet, out of the depth of our grief arise feelings of truest gratitude for the beauty, the tenderness, the nobility of example of our peerless leader's life. There is no death for such as she. There are no last words of love. The ages to come will revere her name. Unnumbered generations of the children of men shall rise up to call her blessed. Her words, her work, and her character will go on to brighten the pathway and bless the lives of all peoples. That which seems death to our unseeing eyes is to her translation. Her work will not be finished, nor will her last word be spoken while there remains a wrong to be righted, or a fettered life to be freed in all the earth. You do well to strew her bier with palms of victory and crown her with unfading laurel, for never did more victorious hero enter into rest. Her character was well poised. She did not emphasize one characteristic to the exclusion of others. She taught us that the real beauty of a true life is found in the harmonious blending of diverse elements, and her life was the epitome of her teaching. She merged a keen sense of justice with the deepest love. Her masterful intellect never for one moment checked the tenderness of her emotions. Her splendid self-assertion found its highest realization in perfect self-surrender. She demonstrated the divine principle that the truest self-government must go hand in hand with the greatest and most arduous service for others. Okay, we're going to pause here for a second, and I want you to think about some of the strategies that I've talked about in the past, strategies that should kind of stand out to you here. So if we take a look of a keen sense of justice with deepest love, masterful intellect, and tenderness of emotions, splendid self-assertion, perfect self-surrender. Think about those. Try to determine which one of the strategies that I say occurs a lot you'll find here. Okay, and also I'd like you to take a moment and determine for yourself what is the tone in these first 4 paragraphs and what kind of words or phrases or images or descriptions help establish that tone. So come up with a tone word, words, phrases, or descriptions that establish that tone. Add both of those things to your notes, the tone and the words and phrases, and then also add the information from here that we just talked about. Pause the tape and then go ahead and do that. Okay, continuing on, paragraph 5. Here was the most harmoniously developed character I have ever known, a living soul whose individuality was blended into oneness with all humanity. She lived, yet not she. Humanity lived in her. Fighting the battle for individual freedom, she was so lost to the consciousness of her own personality that she was unconscious of existence apart from all mankind. Her quenchless passion for her cause was that it was yours and mine, the cause of the whole world. She knew that where freedom is, there is the center of power. In it she saw potentiality, all that humanity might attain when possessed by its spirit. Hence, her cause, perfect equality of rights, of opportunity, of privilege for all, civil and political, was to her the bedrock upon which all true progress must rest. Therefore, she was nothing. Her cause was everything. She knew no existence apart from it. In it she lived and moved and had her being. It was the first and last thought of each day. It was the last word upon her faltering lips. To it, her flitting soul responded when the silenced voice could no longer obey the will, and she could only answer our heartbroken questions with the clasp of her trembling hand. Okay, we're going to pause here for a second. First, I'm going to go back and change this to make sure that this is labeled as paragraph number 7, and this is 8 and 9 and 10. But I want you to pay attention to this paragraph. There's some definite strategies going on here. And if you take a look up here at the top, you'll see that our speaker was one of the first ordained female Methodist ministers. And this is a technique in this section right here that ministers like to use all the time. So I want you to take a look at this paragraph. Try to find something on your list that is a definitely strong strategy that she's using here. Okay, finishing up, this will be paragraph 8, 9, and 10. She was in the truest sense a reformer, unhindered in her service by the narrowness and negative destructiveness which often so sadly hampers the work of true reform. Now you'll notice right here, I have put in ellipses. That means that I've cut out part of the eulogy. It's nothing special that she did, so you don't have to worry about that at all. It's just showing you that there's more of the eulogy that I took out. Okay, paragraph 8. To such ends, the causes which such souls espouse, failure is impossible. Truly did Dean Thomas say at her address at our National Convention, of such as you were the lines of the poet Keats written. They shall be remembered forever. They shall be alive forever. They shall be speaking forever. The people shall hear them forever. Okay, I don't want you to fall into a trap here. So one of the things is here, the speaker up at the top is quoting someone else, Dean Thomas, who in turn she was quoting someone else, the poet Keats. So this right here is not our author's words or not our speaker's words. It is another author's words that another speaker spoke about at a different occasion that our speaker is using to help her provide her message. So any strategies right here, that's not our speaker's strategies, but using someone else's words who also used someone else's words to describe the effect, the long-term effect of Susan B. Anthony is a strategy, and you can mark that down in your notes. Okay, let's go back up to the top really quickly, and remember the last sentence here kind of helps peek at our purpose. Analyze the rhetorical choices Shaw makes to convey her message that Anthony's cause of women's rights is a universal one. I really want you to pay attention to paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 to kind of help you really hone in on the exact purpose and how you might describe that. Okay, this is the passage that we're going to be taking a look at next week, and you're going to be doing more independently with this passage. I wanted to give you a taste of it to start off this week and to have you kind of start to take some notes, but we're going to look at individual parts next week. I am not going to help you. You are going to have to come up with your own strategies and your own reasons how they apply to the purpose. This is a harder one than the last one we looked at, but I don't think they're going to give you a softball rhetorical analysis passage on the exam this year. Okay, don't forget to work on your 500-word personal statement, and you'll be turning that in tomorrow. Tomorrow, my screencast is going to be a little bit more about college applications. There's going to be nothing about rhetorical analysis. We'll hit that hard next week. All right, have a good night, and I'll see you virtually tomorrow.